Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to our still very much in development capital ship. In today's episode, I intend to finish off the hangar here at the back. Currently, I've just made a very basic shape with all the very necessary components, so that we can start building around that and making it look a little better. In addition to this, I also want to figure out the back shape here, so we kind of know what we're doing, as I'm still not 100% sure what we're going to do back here. There's a lot of space to cover, and how much armor I actually want to add, and the levels is still up in the air, really. And finally, after all that's done, we desperately need to finish off the turret, trying to make it look a little bit better. Now, I do have a couple of ideas in this respect. The first idea is that perhaps we should put this on a bit of a pedestal to make it look a little bit more attached, as at the moment, one of the big issues is that it's just so flat on the surface. It does look like a separate entity that's simply laying there. If we perhaps build up the armor a little bit just before the turret is attached, maybe it could look a little bit more, well, attached to the ship itself. And another thing we need to do is finally pick a colour. At the moment, it's still firing the very basic colour. In fact, no, it's not. It's now firing a white projectile, as it has all of the prime colours of light in equal measure. That is red, green, and blue at 1. Of course, these are the prime colours of light and not for pigments, which would be red, yellow, and blue, because a lot of people got a little bit confused about that in the chat. So I just want to clarify, these are the prime colours, but only with light, and that's important to know, because it means we can make any colour combination using these colours. Again, different spectrums and all that. And one idea I had was, what about yellow, which should be blue, red, and green. Here you can see I've already changed one of these, so here's hoping it actually looks decent. I am yet to actually see a yellow laser, so kind of curious about how it's going to look, honestly. So there we are. I would manually fire it, but sadly I am currently in my seating area down here, and there is currently no way to get to the laser system because all the hallways aren't finished and stuff. So let's just spawn in, as always, the Onyx Watch, and we'll spawn in the thruster craft. This is probably the most important thing we're going to do today, picking the colour of the laser. Okay, well, it looks cool. Definitely looks better with the increased width as well. And there are the missiles bearing down. So beautiful. It's kind of weird, when the other weapon systems are online, the laser gets a little bit more distracted, I find, as things get destroyed. It keeps on choosing new targets. I've also realised I've made the barrel a little bit too long, so that was a mistake on my part, and considering we're redoing the turret today, it doesn't really matter. So, that was pretty nice. I do like the yellow, it looks a bit more unique. I would like to just go with pure green, to be perfectly honest. However, that is the default colour, and it means that every single ship in the battle, at least every single vehicle in the battle, will be sporting that colour. So, I want it to look a little bit more unique so we can actually figure out who's shooting what and when. So how about if we change to 50% red, 100% green, and 0% blue? Because that ratio, it'd be 5 to 10 to 1, or 2 to 1 to 0, to make it a bit more simple, would hopefully lead to a very greenish yellow, more towards the green spectrum than anything, so I find that green's a more potent colour in this combination. At least in-game. I don't mean this in real life, because honestly I don't know how it completely mixes, honestly, because I don't do stuff like that. Art is not my forte. Lasers, on the other hand, also not my forte. Okay, yes, I think that's going to be the colour, although we could just go back to having multiple colours and perhaps have one of them as, like the main one there, more green than the others, and just keep the rest as this yellowy, greeny kind of phlegm colour. Yes, this is phlegm colour now, and we're all going to remember that, and it's going to poison the look of this laser forever. Also, missiles, you just can't beat missiles. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit work off camera now because there's quite a bit to do, and we're going to try and figure out the very basics of the hangar here so that it can spawn a vessel. But there are a lot of choices to do with this, which I'll get back to in a second. There are actually even more than I just thought of, which we need to address and decide on before the hangar can be completely operational. But when it is, it's going to be fantastic. Before starting work on the hangar, I decided to go ahead and expand on the idea of giving the laser turret a bit of a stand, and ultimately it turned out pretty darn well. The big benefit to this is that the laser turret itself looks as if it's got a true point of rotation, rather than simply looking as if the entire turret is sliding around. It actually rotates, which looks far better. Of course, the turret does need to be worked on still quite a lot, because it's the exact same turret, just on a much more stylized base, and the base itself, of course, isn't actually finished either. This is a crude knock-up, but yeah, really happy with that, and that's definitely how we're going to do the laser turrets in the future. It just looks so much better, and opens up a lot of possibilities for making a more standard looking turret and just leaving the barrel exposed. As much as I don't like how the barrel looks, it would give it a more natural feel and ultimately just look a hell of a lot better, which is kind of the whole point of this ship. So let's continue actually working on the hangar then, like I said I would. Two major options need to be discussed inside the hangar before we can actually start building it up a little bit further. The first option is to do with the blueprint spawner itself, and that is, how many spawns are we going to preserve? This is how many of the vehicle we are creating will be alive and kicking at any given time. As soon as that number goes below the threshold, a new one will be created, at least that's the theory. So if there's 4 and the 4th one gets destroyed, it will simply create another one. If 2 get destroyed, it will create 2 more, and so on and so forth. This will massively impact how the hangar actually works. If we go above 1, we are essentially setting it up so we are going to be able to have multiple aircraft at any given time, and thus we are less likely to hold on to the vehicle, and we'll probably also want it to be a bit more, honestly, small. We would like the vehicle to be a lot smaller if this is the case, so we can keep on creating them as they get damaged. If we have it down to 1, we are more likely to have a more elite vehicle that's simply going to sit here after the battle using the docking stations, which can be found in the MISC tab, I believe. Yes, the docking stations will hold on to the vehicle after battle, and then if it gets killed during a battle, a new one will be created, and so on and so forth, up to 10 times, which is the natural limit of the blueprint spawner. So that's the very first decision, and I'm thinking, since we have such a limited runway here, as I didn't really want to go overboard and go all the way back, I think having one elite, or at least decent flyer, is probably the better idea, although we can always change them in the future. The second option is, when should we allow it to actually create new vehicles, particularly when it first comes into play? And I think, honestly, we should just have it nice and simple. Every few seconds it activates, meaning that every few seconds, if it detects, well, actually less than a second, if it detects that the aircraft has been destroyed, it will simply start creating the new aircraft to replace it. I think this would make a lot of sense, and honestly will probably be the best way about it. Now, one more problem is actually that this is far too low. If we start spawning something in now, unless we have the origin block very low on the aircraft, and we have a lot of rubber on the runway, which we don't have, it's simply going to merge with the bottom here and start crashing as it gets built. So I'm going to raise this a little bit and consider maybe using a little bit of rubber. Now, I haven't used rubber for the runway before, but it looks nice, it looks decent. I don't like it as much as the black painted metal, but this would mean that there will be no impact damage. If the aircraft does come in a bit too hot and hit the runway, it won't suddenly break the runway in half and cause all sorts of issues to everything below. Decisions. Another problem with this build is because of the huge block count of the main vehicle, we are going to need to use a sub-vehicle spawner. This essentially means that the aircraft will become part of the blueprint of the main vehicle, and so they can both be spawned in during battles as one, Whereas if they were both separate entities, there's no chance they could ever be spawning together due to this taking up such a huge amount of the force allocation. So that's all we have to do, and that does lend itself better as well to a single aircraft, which is less likely to die in a fight, but if it does, we simply replace it quickly and once again make it part of the blueprint. So that's where we're going with that. So we have our docking station here, and we have our sub-vehicle spawner. What we're going to do now is sort out the AI for both of them, so it can grab the vehicles and then let them go during a battle. Still need to move the blueprint spawners and everything, and I think I'll do all that as well, sorting out all the AI once we actually have the aircraft spawned. So it's time to sort out how this is actually going to look, which means I'm also going to have to do the sides so we can attach it all to the ship, and I think this is now the final decision-making element of how the ship will finally take shape. As normally happens with these sort of things, multiple paths have revealed themselves, and which one is the correct path, I actually don't know. So, I have a few ideas. The first idea is to add laser cannons in a similar ilk as the one on top to the sections down here because of just how much space we actually have. It turns out we have way more space than I initially envisioned, which is probably large enough for two lasers of a similar strength to the main one. This would make this thing really devastating against any enemy that does not have smoke defenses. Of course, if they have smoke defenses, then, well, everything bad's going to happen ever. The second option is we could possibly use a regular custom cannon rather than the advanced cannons, because the area we have doesn't really lend itself overly well to the advanced cannon in terms of the shape we have, but it does lend itself very well to the custom cannons, which are still very devastating. Having a maximum gauge, maximum explosive damage shell still does a lot of work against most enemies. Of course, we can't customize it as much as the advanced cannon, but it is rather good, and the final choice we have is actually the advanced cannon, and to have incredibly small anti-air guns over here, because anti-air guns can be absolutely tiny. The main thing we can do is, using the advanced cannons, we can start using the the belt-fed loader. The belt-fed auto-loader. Now, I don't use these very often. I don't put as much stock into them as a lot of other people do, but I do certainly understand how good they can be when it comes to the anti-aircraft cannon. The very small fast-firing cannons, due to its increased speed without being overly huge, so you can have very few of these doing the job of quite a few autoloaders, making a very small gun that, although it can't fire constantly for an extended period of time, can fire very reliably and at a very fast rate. So, in terms of how many shots per second. So, three options, all would function rather well here, and I really can't decide which one we're going to go with. And in addition to this, I then have to decide about how these two are actually going to connect. Are they going to connect and go even higher, or are they going to go lower and have this as a more natural walkway? If they go higher, really we're looking at the aircraft carrier using helicopters and anything that can get very quickly in the air and very quickly back down, so as not to crash into everything else. If we have it lower, it means we can use more heavy-style bomber planes which can simply glide out and into the battle, which will make a huge difference on how this craft will be played. I also need to merge these two sections a little bit better, as it looks a little bit clunky right now. I'm not good with styling things, can you tell? Okay, so it's about time we do some science. The turret in front of us is my first ever attempt at using the belt-fed autoloaders. Essentially, what makes them so special is that they can't reload whilst the turret is firing. However, they do feed into the barrel a lot faster than regular autoloaders. This means you need a lot less of them for a decent fire rate, and that's the whole special thing about it. As you can see, it's absolutely tiny, meaning you could fit several of these along here, possibly 5 per side. Overall, quite a few. Now, there is something very special about these shells. They are true flak shells. Not only are they, well, using the flak warhead, essentially meaning they have a large explosion radius for their size, if a bit of a weaker payload, they also detonate even if they don't hit the target, because the turret is using a laser designator equipped to the timed fuses of the shells themselves. Essentially meaning if it fires, the turret will calculate how long the shell should be in the air before hitting the target. If the shell goes through the air for a longer period of time than this estimate, it will simply self-destruct, causing the explosion. Now, the explosion should be 9 meters in radius, so it should be quite a large range, meaning that even a near miss will likely end up with a hit. So let's see if we can test it out versus our good friend, the Onyx Watch thrustercraft. Okay then, so sadly I did forget to turn off all the other weapon systems, so this time, only the turret, let's go. I've also made a few changes to the turret, not overly so, but it should fire a little bit faster than it was going to before, because before, well, honestly, it was just far too slow for an anti-aircraft gun. Okay, there he is, and let's turn off his AI before he shoots us, and that was faster than expected. Okay, I may have set it to shoot a bit too fast. However, that damage is wow. Okay, did not expect that. The damage is better than the star cannons. Yep, the damage is far better. Oh, and look, and there's the timers going off as meant to. Oh, a few of those shells did miss, but still did damage to the top there, so it is working. Okay, yeah, not what I expected, so I'm a little bit lost for words. They're definitely going as fast as they're meant to. They're meant to be shooting at around about 400 meters per second. They are definitely detonating if they miss, and their damage is just insane. So what I'm waiting for, there we go, is it already happened? Nope. I'm waiting for the gun to basically run out of ammo. It's killed the enemy before it ran. Oh my lord, we're going to have like 6 of these damn things. Oh, there we go, it just ran out. So essentially, like I was trying to say before, the belt-fed loaders have a really, really strong positive in that they load shells faster into the barrel than a regular autoloader, so they can really cause a ridiculously fast fire rate, as you can see. And that was only on one barrel with a 10 centimeter diameter shell. These aren't small shells. Well, they're small, but they're not tiny. But their negative is, once they run out of ammo, they need to wait to reload. When they're reloading, they can no longer load the barrel, meaning that once they're all unloaded, well, the gun's just going to stay stationary and can't fire until it's fully reloaded again, or you can actually change the settings. Let's have a look here, so you can kind of tweak it. I've currently got 60 seconds, which it seems like was happening there. The first few autoloaders, which actually fired first, had already started that process again, so they had started reloading. Only the last few, who were the latest to fire, were still loading the barrel. But seriously, that was insane, and I'm going to have at minimum 6 of these, 3 on each side at extreme minimum. This is going to be... Honestly, no, I'm just blown away. Okay, advanced turrets, you've proven yourself once again. I really should use you more, and I really should do more experimentation with you, because that was fantastic, and I'm certain we can do better. So I'm going to go ahead and install them along the 2 sides. As you can see, I've also changed the pattern again, because I couldn't stand how it looked a second ago. And then we're going to give it another test, with at minimum 6 of them. This is going to be a bit crazy. This is either going to work beautifully or tear the ship apart. Also, probably very beautifully, so regardless, it's going to be very fun. So here we go, the enemy has been spawned in once more, the AI is off, and hopefully all turrets are going. Sadly, we are in... Wow. I believe there was a ship here at some point. I mean, it definitely had a left side last time I checked. Actually not killing its own vessel. Pretty darn good. Sadly, we are in degraded mode. I guess that's the con of having so many shots in the air. I was worried that some of the shots would despawn before getting there, but it seems like at this range, at least, there aren't enough projectiles in the air to cause that to happen just yet. That is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Really cool, and definitely our anti-air system in action. Although, it appears that this one at the back isn't working properly. I'll check that out in a second. The damage seems to have lessened somewhat. Oh, lag damage. Okay, as you can see, the shots are hitting the areas with metal. It's just a matter of the game has decided to not load the damage yet because of how many individual points are being caused. That is one of the big negatives with using lots of little hits. The game tends to struggle to visualize this to you. As you can see, occasionally a block will randomly disappear, but by the looks of it, it's pretty much all the way through. Funnily enough, it seems to be doing worse with more guns than less guns. No idea why. I guess perhaps. Oh, I know why it is. None of the guns anymore. Well, none of the guns at the moment actually have aim point selection, so none of them are actually going for the weak points. They're just hitting everywhere. Even the original one no longer has it. So there we go. The ship is basically destroyed. Well, in fact, I think it is destroyed. Now it's loading in a little bit, and I think I am very happy with our current anti-air system. Definitely effective against even the most heavily armed of enemies. And there we are, 2 damage, so what we'll do now is figure out what have I done wrong, why do you not work? Actually, why don't you work? You're not stuck, that's for sure. Because your AI is like a why is your AI so off? That was literally my fault because I didn't actually mirror that, so for some reason I just put that in the wrong place, so whoopsie-daisy. AI... Weapon controller, mainframe, there we go. And that would have made it work if the enemy was left alive. Okay, so that's that. The AI system is now in place. All that remains is to actually make the turrets look good, and that's pretty much done. However, I am currently running out of time, so that will be something I do off camera. Surprisingly, this has took a lot of time. I mean, I've been playing now for 3.5 hours, and it looks like we've done nothing, but actually, we've done a lot. I guess that's just the way of things in this particular type of game. So what do we do next, then? I suppose next, we should replace the metal with rubber. Yeah, that's what we were going to do originally, and it's something nice and easy to do before we call the episode an end. So, where are you, rubber? Window block. Yeah, that's it, yeah. Window blocks. That's what I want. So the question is, how will this actually look? Because I'm not a huge fan of the look of this, to be perfectly honest, so I'm a little bit skeptical. I've got to be honest, that actually hurts my eyes, so I think it's a very clear no. We're going to stick with the darkened metal instead. I think it's only fair we test the anti-air capabilities against the most feared and loathsome of all creatures, the flying squirrel. Now, to be perfectly honest, the laser system can destroy this in a microsecond, because the lasers instantly hit the target and the damage is more than enough to destroy every single block on this tiny flyer within the first pulse. But I would like to see just how the cannons deal with this. Now, the cannons are not made for such a microscopic flyer, so I don't actually have too high hopes, but you never know. Oh, no, it already took out the back of it because of the radius of the explosions. Never mind, it's perfectly capable of destroying a flying squirrel. It's purely because of the area of effect from the shells that missed. The first one managed to hit the back, which caused it to nosedive rather than do its random movement, and then the rest just mopped it up nice and easily. So, I'm afraid, though, I am all out of time for today's episode. If you have enjoyed today's episode, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. I wish we could have done more with the hangar today, but the turrets took so much time, and honestly, I'm so thankful I've decided to go down this route. Next time, we'll be starting off, hopefully, on the front of the ship, finishing off the command centre and the area down here, which will hold our submarines, and we may even test out the hangar with our very first aircraft. To be perfectly honest, since we're going with such a simplistic system for only having one aircraft at a time, it's not particularly hard to do. We've all seen it before in my previous designs, like the Spite, amongst other things. No, not Spite. The original hull, which held a bomber, which held the... the Blight bomber. It would be the exact same idea, except for hopefully a better vehicle in the future. So, once again, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.